I am Dario Serrano.
And I'm Sam Ortiz.
I'm Rick Waring.
And today is May 16th, 2024, and we're here in Greendale, Wisconsin. So where were you born?
I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on the east side.
Do you remember the hospital name?
Mount Sinai, actually. It says, 12th and State.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up on the east side of Milwaukee. It's Riverwest area. I lived there most of my life. Moved around a bit, but...
Were your parents born here?
Yes. My mom and my father were both born in Wisconsin.
Where did your mom work?
She worked at a big department store, high-end department store. It's no longer around. It was called T.A. Chapman's. It was one of the high-end department stores. She was the manager there, second in charge there, until they closed down. And
did you ever get a chance to visit her job?
Yes. I was there, walked around, and both me and my brother worked there. My brother, the department store was downtown on Milwaukee and Wisconsin, and my brother worked there and actually caught a armed robbery guy who just committed an armed robbery of someone in a parking structure. My brother chased him down and held him for the police. And when I worked, they were having like a super sale, the end of the year, get rid of all that stuff. And I was just helping my mom out in their warehouse, just getting everything set up so they can sell it.
Talking about your brother, how many siblings did you have?
There's 7 of us in total. So I have 2 brothers and 4 sisters. And I'm the youngest of all.
Were they, with their ages, were they present in your childhood, in your house?
Most of them were. Growing up, one sister was gone. The other ones moved out, probably, early, 10, 12-ish. My age, they would move out when they got to be of age. And then the other ones, they stuck around and lived with us most of the time.
Did you guys all attend the same elementary school?
We did. We attended the same elementary school, which, lucky for us, was right across the street from us. I grew up in an area off Pearson Center, and the school was Franklin Pierce Elementary School. So all I had to do was walk across the street, and I was in school.
Would you say that most of the kids that attended your elementary school were also from the neighborhood?
Yes. Back in the day, it was typically everyone in that area would all go to the same school. There was a couple of them pretty close to each other, elementary schools, but yeah, everyone in the neighborhood went to the same school.
Would you say your neighborhood was very closed and everybody kind of knew each other?
Yeah, it was a very, very close neighborhood. A lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Mexicans, and a few blocks away, there's, an area where you have a lot of different ethnic backgrounds. You weren't far from the African American people. I lived on the same blocks. My neighbors were Puerto Ricans and Mexicans. Down the block, we had Italian families. And then you had a lot of Caucasian people. And that area was a big mix of people. Big German, Polish area, and then you had everyone else kind of just filtering in.
Did you experience did you see a lot of segregation in your neighborhood? Or do you think it was kind of expanding away from that?
At the time, the neighborhood was very, very close, but there was a separation. In my neighborhood, we had Holton Street, which is a big street, big name street, and you cross that, you start getting into a separate heritage. The ethnic background changed quite differently from the other side. So that line of Holton Street, you got a lot of, on one side you got a lot of Hispanic, whites, German, Polish, and on the other side you had African Americans. But that line wasn't solid. Everyone spread out a little bit. You can go a few blocks in either directions on Holton Street, and you're still going to run into Hispanics. So we all kind of meld together. We all grew up together. We all went to the same school. Someone may live a mile away from me, but we play on the same playground together. We play on the same sport teams. So, but you can tell the difference between where blacks were at, African Americans, compared to where, our Caucasians were, or Hispanics were. So there was a difference. Not a lot, but there was.
What was the safety like in your neighborhood?
Wasn't very safe. A lot of fights. Growing up in my younger years wasn't a lot of gang issues. Most of it was racial tension. It's still in that time where people didn't accept certain races. If you weren't white, they weren't very nice to you. So you had a lot of tension built up there. And there was always fights. People from different backgrounds handle things differently. And you have so many in a small area, there's a lot of disagreements. So you had a lot of fights. My neighbor actually jumped out of his house. Me and my sister were watching out the window, just, at home, just looking out the window, and out comes my neighbor, jumps out of the car and starts shooting into the car next to him. So, wasn't a very safe neighborhood. It was a very volatile time. You could get into a fight at any point, just walking down the street.
You told us that you like to play sports like basketball, football, and baseball. What was it like with the racial tensions that you mentioned, playing those sports growing up?
Most of the time, the athletes in our neighborhood, the ones that are good at their sports, that's what we got around. It's ones that weren't very good, that just wanted to come in and cause trouble. But if I was playing basketball with, my black friends or my Hispanic friends or my Polish friends, we'd all play basketball together. I mean, granted, you get fouled and you may have an argument here and there, but it wasn't like, you're a white, so I'm going to beat you up. It wasn't like that. It was just, we got along very well when we're playing the sports. It's, just people that don't like who you are, how you look, is the ones that cause the problems.
What was your religious status in your house growing up?
We grew up Catholic, Roman Catholic. We had a church about 4 blocks away from us, St. Casimir's, we would go to. And it kind of, after a while, it kind of just filtered off. You move around and you never just come back to the same church. But yeah, we grew up very religious. Every holidays, you do the dress up and you go to church. And it wasn't every Sunday. There were a lot of Sundays we did miss, but every holiday for sure. And majority of the Sundays, your Sunday mornings was waking up, getting dressed up, and going to church.
Do you think religion played a big part in your community, and or is the community really big on church besides you guys?
Not really. You go in groups. You know, people that are religious hang out with each other. People that aren't religious hang out with each other. People that will do devil worship, they will hang out with each other. So it's that kind of makeup. So you know who's in your neighborhood, who's religious, because you see them in church. You sit next to them, and after church, you sit there and talk to them. Either you have a potluck down in the basement of the church, and you just sit there and talk with each other. So you get to know who goes to church and who doesn't. So there was a wide mix. There wasn't a lot of people in our neighborhood that went to church, but there was a lot,
Were people of other races and ethnicities accepted more in church? So as if other races that aren't the same, were they able to like come together for church? And
Yes. When you're religious, you don't really, first mindset isn't on, oh, I don't like you because you're a certain background, you're a certain color. It's everyone's accepting. You go in there, whether a black person comes in or a Hispanic person comes in, that's when you're going to church, that really isn't on your mind that you don't like them. You're just there worshiping God. You're not there to judge, how other people are.
would you say your church was involved within your community, as in like activities and other things like that?
Yes. They held parties, like little church festivals. They always had a church festival there. They were involved in the community, trying to go to schools and, just hanging out in the neighborhood. We'd commonly see our priest walking around, and we talk to him. He lived there at the church next to the church, so we just walk around, talk to him. So yeah, they were involved. Not crazy involved, but they weren't absent from the neighborhood.
Did you attend the middle school, or was your elementary school? Okay.
From Franklin Pierce, I went to A Street Middle School, which at that time was a little harder school to get into. So it was A Street Specialty School because you had to be on a smarter end level. You had to be on the A level to get in to that school.
Was that further away from your house?
Yes, there was. I had to actually take 2 buses there, and at the time it was city buses. We didn't have the busing that we had now. This one I had to take a city bus, 2 of them, to get there. One off of Holton Street to downtown, and one on Wisconsin Avenue up to 8th in Wisconsin. The school was on 8th in Michigan, which Wisconsin and Michigan are right next to each other. So that was always fun. And I'd pass my mom's work when I get off. My mom's big towering building was right there.
Going from your elementary school to your middle school, did you at that age notice any difference between the people you were going to school with?
Yes. That was a huge jump. And people-wise, because at my elementary school, I left there at 5th grade. I went to middle school 6th, 7th, and 8th. And the middle school it's like going from a public school to a private school. They're a lot more advanced. So the people there actually had to pay their way instead of where I grew up very poor. And you're always getting stuff handed to you. You had to, in the middle school, you actually had to work for it.
Did you ever experience any like criticism from the people back in your neighborhood or other people, like kind of like messing with you for attending a school that was kind of separated and more superior?
No, no. It was me and my sister. We went to school there, so we never really, because a lot of my friends went to the Catholic. St. Casimir's was also a school, so they went to school there. So they were already above everyone else learning wise, and because you had to pay in order to go to a private school, and so those are guys I hung around with, but I never really got joked around with going to a better school.
Were any of your older siblings attending college at this time?
No, I was the first one to go to college in my family, and graduate, and then my sister ended up getting a certificate from college, and then my eldest sister eventually ended up graduating college. But I was the first one.
What were your siblings working in or doing instead of college?
One was married, and she was a travel agent. The other one worked for lawyers. The other one worked for hospitals. My brothers are just regular laborers, One's driving a truck, and the other one's on disability. He had like 3 heart attacks, so he's done working now.
Was it uncommon at the time for people to attend college from your neighborhood?
Yeah. It wasn't. Very poor area. So you'll get maybe on our one block, you'll get maybe out of all the families, say there's 20 families, 30 families there. Out of that, you may get 3 or 4 going on to a higher education. The rest don't. I mean, it's just, they follow their parents, and their parents didn't go very far in their life, so they didn't go very far unless they were encouraged to do more. So,
going back, if you had the opportunity to provide your neighborhood with more opportunities for schools, camps, things like that could help them academically or financially, do you think that would have increased the amount of people that went to college?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's so hard when you're don't have any money. Your parents are. My father was never in the picture, so my mom was raising 7 kids on her own, and financially it was pretty hard. So you're growing up poor. It's not one of those things that you're looking forward to. You're looking forward to everything. Buying school supplies, buying school clothes, and keeping food on the table, and the extracurricular activities with school that cost money. She has to pay for all that by herself, pretty much. So it wasn't very high-end area. So we had to.
So transitioning to high school, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, that was interesting. I went from 8th Street. I went to Riverside High School, which while I was there, they changed the name to Riverside University High School. It was a little easier transition learning-wise because the school I was going to were prepping you for are ready for college. And when you got to Riverside, it was all the neighborhood kids who stayed in the public school were going to Riverside and just catching up with old friends. You can tell the the learning level was a little higher at the school I was attending. So high school made it a little easier. I just, after a while, just didn't like high school anymore.
Do you think there was a certain pressure to join gangs or to kind of drop out of high school or that at the time in your neighborhood?
Yeah, there was a lot of that, especially when you're in the poor status. So the gangs had a tendency to grab you and pick on you, and if you didn't have any money, they're like, "Hey, let's go do this. You get you all the money you want." So I mean that was, and when you don't have money, someone giving you $5 at that time was, someone giving you $100 nowadays. So it was a big challenge to stay out of gangs and stay out of trouble, dropping out of high school, and it was still a challenge.
Were you or anybody you know or were close to were ever approached by the gangs for like recruitment at that time?
Oh yeah, they tried to get me a few times. I mean it's one of those things. I'm from a big family. We had family roots that were dug in, and when someone comes and tries to grab you, you're kind of interested in it, and they're like, "Hey, let's do this," but then you realize, I'm not going out there to deal drugs just to make money. I mean, it'd be nice to have money rolling in my pockets, and a lot of my friends where I grew up did become drug dealers and gang members, but it was something, my family was a little more family oriented. I mean, you be around Hispanic families, you get real close to each other, and you don't veer very far off. If someone bothers you, that's what happens. You're family, what I mean? And it's not easy for someone outside of your family to come and say, "Hey, let's go do this," and you leave your family behind. It doesn't work in that environment.
So family was the power that gave you to push through the gangs problems and.
Oh yeah, definitely. None of my family members. We obviously we grew up in that area, so we know gang members, we know the drug dealers. But it was us. We always consider ourselves, our family, our own gang. Someone messes with me, my brothers take the matter. Someone messes with my sisters, we all take the matter. I mean, there's no, you don't hit women in my family. You hit women in my family, all the men are just going to jump on you, and you learn not to hit women anymore. So, I mean, we consider ourselves our own little gang.
So you attended Riverside High School, correct?
Yes.
Was that also closer to your home, or?
It was within walking distance. So I did walk there every day, which wasn't an issue. I mean, you're looking maybe about 3 miles to walk to school. So it wasn't that big of a deal. The only time it became a challenge was I severely sprained my ankle playing volleyball in school. And I had to wear a hard case on my ankle. And walking the 3 miles on crutches to school, it got unbearable. I mean, my armpits, here, because you're on crutches, I can't walk on it. It just became unbearable. So I had to beg my mom to let my brother use her car to take me to school.
So moving back into closer to your neighborhood where you grew up, were you reunited with a lot of the kids you went to church with in elementary school?
Yeah. You see, the ones that went to church would usually go off to better schools. They would go to like Dominican, Marquette. They would go off to the better schools than regular public schools. It's basically there are quite a few very, very smart people at our school, but it was pretty much a average, not a very wealthy school. It was very much average to lower end, or the smart spectrum. Smart.
Were you working at this time in your high school, in the 4 years of high school?
I did. I lived next to a pharmacy, which was Tim's Pharmacy. And I would walk the dog, pick up the dog stuff. I would stock their shelves. It's just a little small family corner pharmacy, which are very few around anymore like that. It would come in if you knew everyone that came in and got their prescriptions and stuff like that. And if they come in and says, hey, I can't pay the full price now, can I come back next week? And most of the time the pharmacists own the store, so they'd be like, yeah, I know you come in every day and this and that. Yeah, all right. So, or they go on a barter system here, I give you this if, because I don't have the money to pay. And so it was a very, very down home store like that. So all I did was just, fill the stock, and back in a couple years later, I'd do a cash register a couple times when he was short.
Was it hard for you to balance things like work and your school along with extracurricular activities like your sports?
No, I don't. Not for me. It wasn't. It was a busy day, but I would go in just for a couple hours after school, go to the store, and if I had ball practice, I would do the ball practice, then go to the store, or I'd work on the store on the weekends. It eventually just got on to be on the weekends, because during the week was a little too much. And then when I'm done with my extracurriculars, after school stuff, and he's shutting down, closing for the day, so it was basically just the weekends for me. But it kept me busy, kept me out of trouble. I didn't hang out on the streets. I didn't hang out with gang members and stuff like that. So it kind of worked. It kept me out of trouble.
What sports did you play in high school?
Basketball and football in high school.
Do you think if high schools back then and other high schools would have had more opportunities for those extracurricular activities, that it may have, lowered the gang population and other problems that could keep students away from school?
If they had the ability to increase the teams, that they could have helped. We still had gang members playing on our basketball team. We still had fights. We had gang members playing on our football teams. We had a big fight with another city school. So it would help if they had more, because you'd be able to put people who are just there, who want to play and who want to do good, compared to someone who's just joining the football team just to tackle someone. So if they can make more teams and spread that out, you might, get better teams, but I don't think it would do anything with the gang problem.
With the gang population increasing in high school, were the gangs all located in one area, or were they separated by blocks, races?
They had their own areas, had their own neighborhoods. The black gangs were on the other side of Holton Street. The Hispanic gangs were, on the other side of Holton Street. but a little more towards North Avenue, and they strung along all up and down Holton Street, but you had different gangs. Different gang over here, different gang down there, different gang over here, different gang over there. So they had their own little areas. And you will see it when you go into high school. We had open lunch. So when we had lunch, we could go anywhere for lunch and just had to come back to school for your class. So you will see the people who want to be there and learn, because the sport people, lunchtime, we go play soccer, on the field, or we go play football. You see the gang members, they just sit there and start walking around causing trouble with other people, causing fights. So it wasn't, you'll see that when you're out there, it's pretty evident on what gang is hanging out in what area.
What were some things that you enjoyed doing after school with your friends?
Sports. That was my biggest thing. Because I grew up across the street from a playground. We had the school, and inside the school was a playground. So whenever we came home, I'd do my homework. I'd just walk across the street and to the playground. And then whatever sport was going on at that time, if it was basketball season, we're playing basketball. If it was baseball season, we're playing baseball season. Football season, we're playing football. It was that, and that was pretty much how I grew up. Come home, do your homework, hit the playground. Street lights come on, you go back home.
Were your friends also in your same neighborhood, closer to your house, or how was communicating with them to make plans and stuff at that time?
It was pretty easy because most of them were on the playground also. So we would make the plans on, hey, tomorrow you want to go over here, or we're going to go to this playground because, these guys want to play us in basketball, or it was just at that time, the day before, we make up plans on what we're going to do the next day. So, and if it was in the off time, in between that, most of them lived right down the block from me. We're all within that block, or a couple block area. I mean, there wasn't. I didn't have to travel very far to have a friend, and just go next door, sit on a plastic couch.
Did you ever get to go to or experience any things like Summerfest or any concerts, and if you have any memories of that?
I didn't attend concerts. It was always too loud for me. I didn't like that loudness. I did like the Great Circus Parade when that was here. We would go to auto parades. I didn't go to Summerfest very much, not until I was a lot older. I'd go with my brothers. But yeah, we'd go down to the beach. When the beach was a lot bigger than what it is now. It was a lot more family oriented. You just grab your girl, you go down to the beach, and you grill out, and you have a beach day. It's just one of those things. But yeah, I never did any concerts or anything like that.
For those who weren't playing any sports or that, or like just the more general kind of hangout place that you would have had at that time for your high school or for other high schools, things like a mall or...
No, ours was pretty much, on a corner. Just hanging out with your friends by someone's house. And you got friends littered all around the neighborhood. You all just, meet up at a corner, and you just start talking and catching up with what's going on, what happened with you, what's going on with him, all, that stuff. And then, you're just walking around the neighborhood. I mean, we may walk down to the lake, do something like that, and walk back. But it's just, we never did the mall. I've been to the malls, but we never not like you hang around and walk around the mall or anything like that. We never did the mall thing.
Did you ever get to leave your neighborhood and go to other neighborhoods further away, downtown, other areas like that often, or was it more in your neighborhood?
No, I hung around in my neighborhood. I got to different neighborhoods because we moved quite a bit. So I got to experience different neighborhoods. The north side, far north side. Got to experience those type of neighborhoods. But that was when I was older, working. So there was just a bed to sleep in that neighborhood. I wasn't, I didn't hang out, I didn't make friends or anything like that there, so.
So through high school, you lived in the same house that you grew up in, right?
No, not in high school. We actually moved in two different houses around the corner. So I grew up on Pierce Street, and that was right across the street from the playground. When we moved, I moved in middle school, which is around the corner on Center Street, which would make my backyard the playground. So I moved from over here to over here. I still had that playground while growing up. And then from there, from high school, we moved to a different house. And that's 2 blocks away, and that's where I went to high school. Walked from to go to high school. You moved, and in that time, I mean, you're so poor. They start raising rates, your rent, and can't afford it. You got, but at that time with 5, 6 kids living with you, you gotta be able to survive. So we ended up moving the lowest, cheapest houses.
Was it common for other people in your neighborhood to move as well? Were there people moving outside of your neighborhood or moving away, or did the population of the kind of the lower class move into a different community?
Moving around was not, the big thing. You like to stay where you're at, and some people did. There were a couple homeowners growing up in the neighborhood, so they stuck around. But yeah, you get people moving, and they don't move far. They stay in the same neighborhood. They stay in the same area. You only got a few mile area that you're at. They all stay there. They may move 4 blocks away, but you help them move, and you go walk over there and go visit them. And hang out.
If you could have financially afforded to move out of your neighborhood, do you think you would have at that time?
Probably. Yeah. I wouldn't have liked it because, that was my thing, the sports, going across and playing sports. But yeah, I mean, if we had the money, we probably would have moved out, and it was a very poor area, not a very, you didn't learn a lot of good things in that area. So if we could have, I'm sure my mom would have got us into a better area, so we wouldn't have to worry about, my next door neighbor coming out shooting up my other neighbor.
So you told us about Ronald Reagan, and what was it like during his election at that time?
Everyone wanted Ronald Reagan. From my memory, he was an actor, and everyone just loved him. I mean, it's like, and I couldn't vote at the time, and I'm like, why is this guy? Everyone just loves this guy. He's an actor. He's in westerns. And that probably was what opened the door for other actors to go into politics. But he ended up being very good. Everyone loved him. Obviously, I wasn't in the politics at that time. But my biggest memory of Reagan was watching the TV, and at the time he got shot, and he's just like, someone just tried to kill your president. That didn't happen. It doesn't happen. Not in my lifetime. But it ended up, you see it, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you see the guy Brady get shot in the head. And it's just like, it's a real surreal thing, because you see this stuff live. And it's not the first time I've seen violence live. But, it was just, he's up here, not, my next door neighbor. He's someone that everyone's looking up to and everyone's talking so great about. Next, someone just tried to kill him. It was weird. And you see it happen, see him get shot, and next, everyone just shoves him in there while the other guy just falls down to the ground. It's like it plays slow motion in your head. It's just one of those traumatic experiences.
Would you say it had any effects on the neighborhoods, communities, or?
Oh, I'm sure it did. Not with me. It didn't affect me. It traumatized me, but I don't think it had any real effect on the neighborhood-wise. You didn't see much. People talk about it and this and that, but I don't think it had at least I didn't notice.
Did you get to attend any sporting events for the Brewers, the Bucks?
Yeah, that's what I love to do, because I was so into sports. I would go to the Bucks game whenever I could. One of my sister's boyfriends got tickets or something like that, and I'd be like, hey, can I come? And no, we don't want the little brother coming along. And I said, Mom, next thing you know, take him with. End up going, it's that type of stuff. And so yeah, I like going to those games. People hate it, baseball, because it's so long and boring at the time, but that was stuff that I want to do, because I wasn't looking at, he just hit the ball in the left field. I'm looking at, okay, how is that pitch going, and how is he standing? Is he trying to aim it over there? Is he trying to hit it over there? So I was more in tune to the intricacies of the game than just sitting there watching him hit a home run.
So you told us about the Brewers and the finals. What was that like?
Oh yeah, one of the biggest memories I have growing up, and it's sport related, was when the Brewers won the pennant. And this city went wild. It went just nuts. And they were a very good baseball team. Very good baseball team. It was their best chance at winning the World Series, which they lost on the last game. But when they won the pennant is at the time they're in American League, they were the American League champions. So you got American League champions, National League champions. They play for the World Series, and they were the American League champions. So they were the best team in American League at the time. And downtown was just nuts. The Bucks just recently won a championship themselves. Downtown was about 3 times as packed as that. The street, you could not walk down Wisconsin Avenue. People were just piled on the street, from one side of the street all the way to the other side, filled all the way up and down Wisconsin Avenue, and people on light poles, and it was just crazy. But everyone's celebrating. It's not like we want to tear this city down and burn it, and that. No, people are just having fun. Hey, I can climb on this pole, and it was a fun time. It wasn't a riot.
Do you remember where you were, and did you get a chance to watch it live?
I watched it on TV, and when they won, I wasn't allowed to leave. My brothers got to go downtown, but I couldn't. I got stuck at home. me and my sisters. But yeah, I remember watching it on TV and just seeing downtown just packed. It was nuts. It would have been nice to be down there myself, but I was a little younger at the time. I would have been lost. There's no way, I don't know how to get home from downtown. We didn't live anywhere near there. I had no clue how to get back home.
So moving back towards the academic side of high school, do you think you were motivated to graduate and to attend college, or was it just something that if it happened, that it would happen?
High school didn't motivate me to attend college at all. It was just something that clicked. After a while, working small end jobs. When I worked at Tim's Pharmacy, cops would come in. Cops walking the beat would come in and hang out. So I would sit there and talk to them and say, "Yeah, you doing this and that?" So I got the regular guys that had that beat. They'd walk in, they come in and they hang out for a while and grab a soda and they leave. And then you get to see that end of it. And so that's what kind of motivated me to further my education was, I grew up here and not doing much. I had no real path to go anywhere. So I got a few concussions playing football, so my sport career wasn't going to go very far professionally. So I had no idea what to do afterwards. So I just stuck out with realizing that these cops were just normal people, and I was like, hey, let me try that. And I always wanted to be a cop. I always wanted to walk around and help people and hang out, and so that encouraged me to further my education. I got in a police force, and I was the first class that was required to get college credits. So I had to get 60 college credits. And I already had some college, not a lot. I had a semester of college under me, but that just, furthered it to go to college. And then once I started, something just clicked, and it's like, oh man, I like college. This is actually kind of fun, because I'm working at my own space, at my own speed. I didn't have to, today I'm learning read this chapter, tomorrow you're going to read that chapter. No, they give you, it says, hey, this is a book, you read it by the end of your semester. And you write your 5-10 page paper on it. So it was something like that, and I was able to do it on my own, because, going to school, doing sports, working, and then afterwards, I can study and at my own pace. It was something at that point just clicked, and for some odd reason, I liked school again.
So in high school, was it in high school when you realized that later on you'd want to become a cop and it was something you wanted to pursue?
I think it was earlier than that. I just put it on the back burner in high school because I was doing other things. I had other aspirations. Maybe growing up to be going on a couple of my buddies I played ball with got scholarships. But because I got injured a few times, I wasn't able to perform for them, for the college recruiters. So I never got a scholarship. So it kind of led me down a different path. I couldn't go the sport path. I had to go, the worker path. So it's I always wanted to become a cop since working at Tim's, which was, my middle school. I'm 12, 13 years old.
Was the experience in Tim's your first ever, the first experience with the police, like wanting to become one, or did you have any other experiences with the police, maybe negative or?
Well, yeah, they came to our house and arrested my brothers. Um, it was in an area where, I mean, you're troublemakers. I mean, it's just that area. You do things and you get arrested. So they came to our house, but he was very nice to me. They were very, very respectful, and it was a positive experience. Although they're arresting my brothers, it was still a positive experience. It's traumatic that, hey, you're arresting my brothers. Don't do that because we're very close-knit family. You're like, no, no. But they sat there and talked to us, and they explained everything. And it wasn't like they just kicked in our door and took them and they ran. And next thing you know, we don't have no clue what's going on. And, it wasn't like that. At that time, they sat there and they talked to you and explained stuff to you.
So, graduating from high school, can you tell us a little bit about your graduation, and who attended, what it was like for you?
That's when I was, and my current wife met my last year of high school. I attended hers, she attended mine. It was very small, nothing big or huge. High school is just high school. You just graduate and next thing you know, you have no clue what to do. But yeah, it was a big thing, but it was a normal thing to graduate high school at the time. You're expected to, so.
So, how did you come across MATC and your interest in criminal justice?
Talking with my wife's father, who eventually ended up being my father-in-law, who has passed. He always talked to me, encouraged me to get more schooling. He always wanted me to go back to school. Always learning. His two kids were in college. Were going to UWM, and he always encouraged me to always go back to school. Go back to school. Go back to school. You're not going to get anywhere without a college degree. You got to get that college degree. So he would always encourage me to further my education. And I went and picked up my wife at her college, which was UWM. They had a fair there, a career fair, and the police were there, so I applied for the police department then.
So, applying to the police department, was it an easy process at the time, or?
Stressful. For me, the written test was probably the hardest, but everything else was a breeze. A physical test, I mean, I do that with my eyes closed because I was an athlete, so I mean, that was not an issue for me. Actually, a funny story. I'm sitting there, you had to do a pull-up on a bar and stay there for like 30 seconds. Well, I'm sitting there, and the person who's timing you, she's talking to another person who is doing timing a different event. They're sitting there talking with each other, and they left me hanging there. So I had to be, well over a minute. And, they're sitting there talking, and she's like, oh no, you're done. So I said, being a little jerking athlete, I decided to do a couple more pull-ups at the time.
So how long were you in the police force?
25 years. From time to time. I got years for 27 and a half years on paper that I'm a police officer. But yeah, I did 25 hard street life work.
What different positions or roles did you have throughout your career in the police force?
From the beginning was patrol. The guys in the cars answering calls for service. I did the foot patrol, which is, just you have your little area, your little neighborhood, walked around there, did the same thing like I seen at the guys at Tim Pharmacy. You go in there and you hang out in the pharmacy for a little while, have a soda, talk to the kids, talk to the people in the neighborhood, find out what's going on, where's bad houses, all that stuff. I rode a bicycle. I was a bicycle cop for a while. And then from there, I went into our, which at the time was called our warrant squad, which basically focused on getting the worst criminals that the city of Milwaukee had and finding them and arresting them. So whatever you can think of as your worst crime, that was my job. Every day for, 17 years after, for about 17 years doing that, was getting the worst of the worst. And times it was harrowing, but.
Was there a negative relationship between the police force and communities within Milwaukee?
That would go in waves. You see some negativity when stuff would happen in small scales. If something would happen to a local gang member, a small part of the community would get together and hate the police, throw rocks at you and bottles and whatnot. And then something else would happen. A cop would get killed or something like that, and then the community backs you up. Community wants you to be there. They love you again. And then something else would happen to someone, maybe nationwide, Rodney King. Then the entire city hates you again. And then then something positive would happen, or negative to the police department. 9/11. Then the next thing you know, the community loves you again. So it goes in waves. There's a positive and love-hate relationship with the community at the time of what's going on in your local area at the time.
Just curious, did you ever run into anyone you grew up with, had to arrest them or something?
Yeah, quite a bit. I grew up, when I was in high school, my sister had a serious medical problem, so I ended up help raising her 2 kids. And people downstairs, nice couple, married couple that had their own kid, everyone played around the same age. And then years later, when I'm working, I get a burglary investigation, and it was the guy that lived downstairs that I knew. I knew his kid. I babysat his kid. I had to arrest him for burglary. I had to arrest few of my high school friends. Growing up in high school, one of my middle school friends I had to arrest. He turned into be a troublemaker. He's now no longer with us. Drugs took his life, but he ended up just veering the wrong way, and I had to arrest him for a burglary. It was pretty easy. When you steal something that's not yours, people know you. It's that neighborhood. Criminals are together. They don't. You have your criminal gang here. Criminal gang here, criminal gang here, they all tend to come together, just like, people that play soccer, you see your soccer friends, your little soccer group. When you're in high school, all your soccer friends will hang out over here, all your baseball friends will hang over here, all your football guys will hang over here, and they have squabbles every now and then, but you know them, and you know who the bad people are, the people that skip school, the people that steal stuff. They all hang out over there, so you see it, and then next thing you know the people, and when you become a cop, you have to arrest them.
Was it hard for you to or were other people kind of upset with you? You know, felt betrayed in your neighborhood?
Um, no, I never got that. Most of them, growing up, our neighborhood was tight knit. So even when I go out, I went to one of my guys in my class. His dad owned a bar, and we went to the bar to go get something to eat because they had a party going on. So we're gonna go get something to eat. Well, I walk in there and it's all my neighborhood friends. I'm like, holy cow, what are you guys doing here? It was like they all, they weren't, in the gangs. They weren't in, they may smoke marijuana here and there, but they weren't, big time drug dealers. So, most of them were receptive to being a cop. Obviously, you're gonna give me jabs and stuff like that, but hey, the police are coming. But the ones that I had to arrest, you know it was coming because they're just troublemakers. They're not very well liked to begin with.
Just curious, was there by any chance that with Jeffrey Dahmer, did you ever have any experience with that?
No, I got on to the job just after Jeffrey got arrested. I know all the players involved in the investigation. Obviously, because the investigation took years to complete. Even after he got sentenced, you're still investigating stuff on him. Well, funny story. I used to teach basketball with the guy that took his confession. I coached basketball for what was called at the time was the police athletic league, and it's cops just volunteering coach and hang out with whoever. So I coached basketball and I coached baseball. And the guy that took his confession, me and him were coaches together on the same team.
So outside of the police force, and more of like a personal, your more personal life, when did you have your first kid?
Ooh, right before I got on the police department. So I knew how old my kid was by how many years I had on the job. Because he was born right before I got on. I actually had to move. I lived in Shorewood, and he was born, and I had to move back to Milwaukee because Milwaukee had the residency. So I had to live in the city of Milwaukee in order to become a police officer. So right when he was born, our first apartment, when we was born, I had to move out of because I got hired as a police officer. So it was.
Financially, was it hard for you to raise a family? Did you ever have to think about getting a different job, another job?
No. I did. Me and my wife, we talked about it and we made the decision not to overextend the money that we make. I worked as a police officer and she worked for an architect company. And I told her, and you see a lot of my police friends, a lot of my cop friends had to work overtime because they had, 3 kids, 2 big cars, a house, they had all these bills that they had to pay for, so they had to work overtime. And then I talked to my wife, and we made the decision that, if I have to work overtime in order to pay our bills, we're doing something wrong. So we didn't, spend our money on buying land up north that, we'd have to work overtime to pay for. We didn't buy fancy cars, and I didn't grow up with any of that stuff anyway, so it wasn't a big deal for me, but we made the decision not to overextend ourselves, so we would have to, take a second job or me work overtime in order to pay our bills.
With raising your child, were there any certain aspects or values that you wanted or didn't want your child to grow up with?
Um, yeah, yeah. We wanted him in a private education. So we got him a private education. Um, but I also wanted him not to be in the upper class and not experience what it's like to have to work for what you want. Because nothing for me was handed to me, obviously. I mean, I grew up poor. Nothing was handed to me. You know, my clothes were hand-me-downs from my brothers. Um, I had to walk to school because, you know, I didn't have a bike to take to school. And so it's, I didn't want him to live the privileged life. I wanted him to know what it was like to work hard for something that you want. So we got him into the private school, and then we took him out of private school and put him into Greenfield, which was, you know, a suburb, I guess. Put him into a Greenfield, but it's a public school. But it's not at the school I grew up in. School I grew up in. Even in elementary school, you're in fights, you know, a lot. And I wanted him to experience people that, you know, aren't privileged have to work for something. You may find someone that don't have fancy shoes that you have on, or the fancy clothes that you're wearing. These guys ain't going to have that. So I wanted him to realize that people aren't at his status level at the time, which, you know, I mean, we weren't crazy rich, but, you know, at that time we're making enough and we're putting away enough so we can survive after all this stuff, you know. You know, I retired at the age of 50. Not many people can say that, but that was all the hard working and the suffering. Prior to that, you know, saving all the money, putting all the money away, not, you know, buying expensive cars and, you know, owning multiple houses and land and, you know, motorcycles and big, huge trucks. You know, it wasn't, we wanted to save our money, so we kept it short with what we needed at the time and put all that money away. Now I can survive and enjoy it now.
So, from your childhood and towards your retirement, did you visibly see and notice like a big change in like gang populations, whether it be increasing, decreasing, things like segregation?
Yeah. Growing up, you got there was a big time gang problem going when I grew up. You had a lot of gangster disciples. They're becoming bigger. Vice lords, they're becoming bigger. Latin kings, they're becoming bigger. Spanish cobras, you know, with them since they were just a couple kids, and now they're growing bigger. So it was a big challenge because there's so much happening. You see a lot of the black gangster disciples. All the black people would go over there and hang out with that gang. Latin, you know, Hispanics would hang out with the Latin kings or the Spanish cobras, and you see a lot of segregation in that end as it relates to violence and gang population. And then you also see the pot smoking, acid taking people that, you know, flower children, that we would call them flower child. It's someone that, you know, loves peace and, you know, drives a Volkswagen Bug, you know, they just into art, and, you know, you had that in that area. So it was a big segregation part of it, but, you know, people just still got along, except for obviously the gang members.
So, as a police officer, Um, how do you see the future of policing in Milwaukee, and how do you think it should be or should evolve into, or things that they could be doing better?
Um, they have a big challenge ahead of them. The police work evolves with the community nationwide. If something happens, say in Minnesota, that's going to affect what happens in Milwaukee. Something happens in LA, that's going to affect what happens in Milwaukee. As it relates to police work, obviously to Minnesota with the George Floyd, that's going to affect all the police work nationwide. The Rodney King in LA, that affects police work nationwide. So they have to evolve to how they treat certain members of society, both blacks, whites, Hispanics, and that goes in areas. People think that police are racist because black people are getting stopped in this area. Well, that's where black people are at, so they have no choice to stop black people. If there's a white kid rolling around in that neighborhood, he's the one that should be yelling racism because he's going to get stopped because it's a black neighborhood. Why is there a white guy? But you get a lot of that, so they have to evolve in a way that's respectful to everyone that they're serving. The community is entire. It doesn't matter what nationality, race, religion, anything like that. When I first joined, it wasn't very common to have same-sex marriages and stuff like that. It wasn't very common. You did not say that you were gay in the police department. You just didn't do that. Nowadays, they're open in it. One of my old coworkers that I worked with in the water squad, she was a lesbian. A couple of them, they were lesbians. One of our bosses, he was gay. So but that was years later. You're talking 20 years later from when you first started. So everything's changing. Everyone's evolving. They have to. It's a hard job because you have to evolve on how the community is going. You just can't say, "Oh, we're going to stop doing this because community's going to come on outrage," and that's who you're protecting. Is protecting everyone in the community. So
I know you value your relationship with your community. Do you think it would benefit the police force and the police department of Milwaukee if there was more of that bond with Milwaukee's police force and the communities within Milwaukee to get rid of that tension and the confusion between each other?
Yeah. That's hard. The foot patrol stuff works. Being close to the community works. But there's also too much of that can have a negative impact. You can't have 20 cops from one district just walking around saying hi to people, because you need a bigger force to stop the crime that's happening in that area. You're going to have the drug dealers. You're going to have, gangs, fights, car crashes, robberies. You're going to have that stuff in every neighborhood. So you can't have your entire force out there just walking around. You have to have your base police force to help stop the crime, but then a little bit of, because you can get too much information from the community and you're not able to process it. It just goes to waste. Whereas if you have one cop go to this meeting, you're having everyone coming in and explaining to you what the community needs.
So in class, we talked about how before the police department, when it was much smaller in Milwaukee and the city was developing, that there wasn't, or with the less transportation that the city had and the funds and things, there was a lot more cops who would walk around and they'd know who lived there and who did that. They were, more with the community.
Yeah.
And as a result of the city's development and growth, transportation, things like that, became more accessible for the police department, allowing them to spread out. Do you think that's a negative impact of losing that relationship that they once had with the communities?
I don't know. That's hard to tell because we still have, or the police still have, or they're going back to it, foot patrols. And it I don't think the transportation of the bigger technology, I don't think that has a negative impact. I think it has a positive impact. I think some of the police departments got away from that just by the lack of personnel. They didn't have people to go out there and spend the time getting stopping at your local pharmacy or whatnot. You just didn't have the personnel to do that. And once they start committing to something like that, it may help, but I think it's beyond that now because everything's so advanced now. There's, police sitting in their computer or sitting in their car now and run the computer and do everything themselves. Before, we didn't have that. We had to use the radio. You go to a call box and make a phone call, so I don't think it has a negative impact. And still positive, but the person-to-person contact with the community has suffered. And once I realize that and I get back to it, things will start improving.
So moving back into your more personal adult life, so having your child, did you guys move after having your apartment?
Yes. I lived down, when I first got on the job, I had to move back in the city. I lived down by UWM. And then that was in a big apartment. And then, we didn't like the landlord, but I had to move there in order for my job. I only had a month to go. And then my job was going to say, no, you're not in the city, so you're not getting hired. So I had to move there. And then once we got the funds, we ended up getting a duplex on the south side of Milwaukee, and that's basically where my kid grew up. And then as he got older and we able to save up enough money, we ended up buying a house where we currently live at on the southwest end of Milwaukee. Because I still had to live in Milwaukee at the time. And then, 10 years, 15, 20 years after that, then they relaxed the residency requirement and I could move out. But I'm there. I have my house. Why would I move out now?
So after retirement and what you do now, helping with a martial arts instructor, was there any particular reason that you wanted to do that? Any past experience with martial arts?
I grew up with martial arts. I grew up around guys that took martial arts. One of my neighborhood friends, which is the story gets weirder and weirder as I tell it. We growing up always did martial arts. This way back when you had Friday Night Fights, which is just a series of really old martial arts movies where they jump from house to house onto a plane down to a boat and one of those, and they were doing martial arts the entire time, speaking Chinese and Japanese and whatnot. So it was one of those older time. Well, as we're growing up, a couple of neighborhood guys, they were taking lessons. And when, we hang out and they would show us stuff here and there. And the one guy is just, I mean, totally nice guy, real nice guy. And we go visit him, and he has a black eye. They're like, how did you, out of all of us, how did you get a black eye? I don't know, down in my basement, that's where he worked out at. He's working out. I said, down in my basement, working out. Guy walks in the basement and said, I'm from whatever school. Punches me in the eye. I said, ooh, what happened afterwards? I said, well, he's in the hospital now, but this is irrelevant. He punched me in the eye. So, I mean, there's no way you're going to beat this guy. All he did was work out and do karate. That was his life. Like my life was sports, his was working out and do karate. Well, years later, I'm sitting there having lunch on the job. I see him walking down the street. I was like, I grew up with that guy. It's Rufus. And, has makeup on. And he walked everywhere. He lived way on the east side, but now he's way up on, 70th and Hampton. He'd walk everywhere. Everywhere he went, he walked. He never had a car, never owned a car, probably never will. But it kind of surprised me that he was, it wasn't, little eyeliner. He had full-blown makeup on. And it's not the kind of guy you want to make fun of, although he's the nicest guy in the world. He'll let you make fun of him. He won't do anything. But if you try and take something he has, you're in for a world of hurt. You're done. He's just so big and so good at martial arts. So that's growing up around that, and obviously I had to stop because of work and time commitment with other stuff. Kids. I had to stop, and then when I got the time, my sport career was starting to wind down. I need to do some activity, so came here and started doing kickboxing and martial arts. It was one of those things that just kind of, you're doing it, you quit for a long time, and then you come back to it.
So it was something that you wanted to return to and had in the back of your head.
Yeah. Yep.
So, more generally, do you have any particular landmarks or architectural structures in Milwaukee that hold significant or special value to you, and why?
That schools, volunteer jobs, those buildings, there's no real, growing up, you had, like AMC, which was a car manufacturing company. No longer around. Went bankrupt. It's American Motors Corporation. Went bankrupt. AMC. No one even knows that. I don't even know if you guys know what that type of car that is. They had that. That's no longer around. Briggs and Stratton. They had that. Those were things that big companies, big businesses that, you walk by, you drive by, and you see that they're there and they're booming, and next thing you know, they're no longer there. Something else, or a vacant field. But, yeah.
In class, we've been learning a lot about the major businesses, and was the shutting down and closing of some of those major industries have a big impact on the people around you, the city, with things like unemployment?
Yeah, huge. Couple of my friends, they suffered from it. But yeah, it's, you go from having no money to, or having money to, oh boy, now I gotta save every penny I got. Where am I gonna start earning from? Because the companies would just lay off, and after a while they bring you back. Then they lay you off, so that uncertainty was always around. And then next thing you know, the business just said, hey, guess what? Next month, we're closing. Everyone's out of a job. Now you're like, uh-oh. And people, suffered for it.
Does that align with economics compared to your present day, where you're at today?
I think that's pretty much on a person by person level. You're still going to have poor areas. You're still going to have areas that you got hard-working people that are just making it. Your middle class area. You still have your wealthy areas. That's always going to be that way. But as for me, it was a personal decision not to get myself in that circle of poverty. It was me after a while. It's like, no, I will suffer and not buy things, not do certain trips, not go places, not do anything, so I can save up money so my kid won't be in a situation where he has to, suffer in his life growing up. He can get stuff he needed in order to, if he wants to play sports, I can pay for the sports, buy cleats and uniforms and stuff like that. Whereas I didn't have that opportunity growing up. So that was a personal decision on my own. I think the economics growing up is just at a higher level. People just make more money now compared to when I worked at the pharmacy. My pay would be a quarter, which at that time at 12 years old is more than enough for me because I had nothing to spend it on. I just give it to my mom and she save it, and next I had enough money to, buy something. So, but now, you try and give me a quarter for doing something, it's not going to happen. You need to give me a lot more than a quarter.
Closing out on a more positive note, so returning back to you as a martial arts instructor in your life after retirement, how did you come across the opportunity to be able to be a martial arts instructor, and what does that mean to you?
Well, I think that started back growing up at the pharmacy, seeing the police helping people, having to talk to the guy when I'm at such a young age, and he knows I'm there working. It wasn't like a forced child labor thing. It was something I wanted to do, and he'd give me a quarter for doing it a day. I see them just helping people, just walking down the street. He'd stop and talk, and we'd hang out, and I thought it was always a positive impact. And then I also seen them at the negative portion of life when they would come to my house and arrest my brothers, but they were still respectful to everyone else. And that's how I think that's what started with me, caring about other people. So growing up, getting my job, becoming a police officer, helping them in sports, joining the police athletic league, helping them learn and do sports, and helping them understand certain parts of life, because you can equate life lessons into the sports lessons that you're teaching. To now older, not into sports as much as I used to be, and then doing martial arts stuff. You start seeing a little bit more kids again, so I'm back to seeing the kids again, and I was like, yeah, well, I've been through quite a bit, so let me help them, so I'll give them somewhat of experience I had, try and equate that into a lesson, martial arts lesson, into a life lesson, something that they would understand, they can take home and learn when they're going to school, and maybe have a mentor or someone to look up to and say, hey, I want to be like him one day. And hopefully that's a impact that's been made. I believe it has. They're making drawings for me, some of the students. So that has a positive impact on them. So that's part of I guess life. You live, you learn, and you teach. You teach everyone the good stuff about life.
We want to thank you for your time and for sharing these awesome stories with us. They mean a lot, and we hope that you were able to really tell your story.
All right, thank you. I appreciate both of you guys for letting me do the interview with you guys, or selecting me for the interview. It's a privilege.